still make it the best you ever had.
Yeah, no,
That's
it's
right.
All afternoon. You had them all afternoon.
Yeah.
Uncle and two cousins in the corner. Why you let your grandson steal? Stop.
I've been catching you first scenario. What you gonna do now? What you gonna do now, scenario? Yo, here we go. It is October, and you know what happens during October.
The lion and the lamb will bow down to the goat.
Is all of the ritualistic Halloween celebratory things that are going on the earth now. For us who are believers in Jesus, followers of the way, followers of the truth, and followers of the life, we have decisions to make in this month. A lot of us like to do stuff with our family and say that it's just for good fun. So me and my wife were talking, and she says we really should put out something or put out an idea that tells the world what it is we believe, what we stand on, and where they should be watchful for, and everything in regards to Halloween. So hey, let's get into it. Let's talk history. Let's talk what history of Halloween really is. A lot of us know it just as sometime that we want to go get candy for our kids and dress them up and all of these things, but the reality of it is it's so much more than that. It comes as the evening, Hallows Evening, to All Hallows Day or Saints Day, which was originally supposed to be May 13th, but the Catholic Church decided that they would move it to November 1st to align with Samhain or Samhain is how you pronounce it in the Celtic Druid, Samhain, so that they can grab all of the pagans and bring them in and try to drown them out. So All Hallows Day turns into All Halloween, turns into Halloween, which really is the beginning of Samhain after Beltane, which is their summer festivals that started around the 31st of October, went for 3 days as a festival where they celebrated Samhain, which is in Ireland known as the Lord of the Darkness. It was the Druids' New Year on November 1st, and so a lot of the celebration had to do with going into a New Year's celebration for the Druids known as the Feast of Samhain. And the Celts recognized that the summer was ending and that the winter seasons were beginning, hence Samhain means summer's end. They celebrated the stag god. The stag god, which is a god, Samhain, the horned one, the stag with the great antlers, the god of the wild hunt. We know him as Nimrod, the horned one, which is often shown with a great horn or many horns like a stag, also like Molech or the golden cow. So this is where you get a lot of this celebration from. And the Druids' New Year, of course, was on the 1st of November. Coincidentally, we currently celebrate Christmas December 25th, and then New Year's a week after January 1st. But the actual thing that was stolen from was that Jesus was born around the Feast of Tents or the Feast of the Booths or the Feast of Tabernacles, the wedding feast, which happened a couple of weeks before their New Year, which was November 1st. So this time frame was just shifted about a quarter of a year over, and people were deceived into some other worship. In fact, the reason that they celebrated Samhain at this time, October 31st, is it was believed by the Druids that the veil that went between the physical world and the spiritual world was at its thinnest during these 3 days, so that they can reach into and pull the dead out. Because during this time, with winter beginning, so many things were dying that there was so much turnover that the veils were thin and people could come back and they could pull spirits and conjure spirits back. I think that it's also coincidental to note that while they celebrate it like this, we celebrate Jesus Christ, who came to destroy and tear down the veil, who rips it open so that we can have access spiritually directly to the throne of God, and how then the enemy puts the veil back over the minds of those who don't believe. And he works within this thin veil in his own spiritual realm, where we work with no veil. If we were to push forward with some of the customs that we know come out of this. Now, if I'm speaking fast, it's all right. You can rewind this. Go look up everything that I'm saying, study it for yourself. But there are some customs that we do that we say are fun for this time of year. One of those are bobbing for apples. Let's get into where a lot of this stuff comes from. Costumes, bobbing for apples, bonfires, jack-o'-lanterns, trick-or-treat, right? Trick or treat is something that we used to do as a kid. Trick or treat, smell my feet, give me something good to eat. If you don't, I don't care, I'll pull down your underwear. Now first, even as a joke for a kid, I'll pull down your underwear sounds a little bit ritualistic, right? And that's because it is. What they did with the trick-or-treating was the Druids, which were the priests or the authoritative branch of the Celtics, would go around to the nobles, the noble elite of the villages, and bang on their doors, and they would be carrying with them these cut out pumpkins or squashes or turnips, and they would have them lit with candles, and they would bang on the door, and when it was answered, they were given a choice, trick or treat. Now, what they would have to do, the nobles would have to do, if there was a minor in the house, a minor child, they would have to give their child to the Druid for human sacrifice. If they did that, then they were rewarded with a treat. They were left the candles, the candle or the squash or the turnip or the pumpkin burning there with the face cut in it, there to ward off any of the spirits that were going to be conjured up on this particular evening. If they refused to do that, if they didn't have a minor, they would give a servant in their home. If they refused to do any of that, then what would happen is they wouldn't be left a jack-o'-lantern to burn on their porch to protect them. And instead, they would take blood and make a hexagram, 6-point star in a circle, which was known to draw to that door a lust by a demon spirit. So that spirit would be drawn to that house to torment that house, hence trick or treat by offering a sacrifice. That's why when you give your cakes or your candies, you are offering a sacrifice for protection. This goes on, so then they would take these people, these sacrifices, and they would bring them to give offerings to their gods. One thing they would have is they would have a cauldron boiling with some type of apple mead or apple fluid, an apple juice, if you will, boiling in a cauldron, 200 plus degrees, apples thrown into it, and those who were sent to be sacrificed had a choice. They could see if they could pull an apple out with their teeth, and if they could on their first time, then they would be set free. And if they did refuse to or couldn't, they'd be beheaded. These things often happen at sacrificial grounds like Stonehenge. In fact, Stonehenge is known to be one of the sacrificial grounds of the Druids. I believe it is said that they have found over 4,000 human remains, most of which skeletons show that they have been beheaded underneath Stonehenge. And you could go in and you would bob for apples in this boiling cauldron. And if you would get it out, yeah, you got to go, but your face was mutilated, ears probably damaged, nose damaged, mouth mutilated, eyes blinded. You lived a life of torment afterwards. You probably look like Skeletor. Wonder where they got that idea. Full human body, but just a skeleton face. Not really sure. I'm not saying there's a correlation. It just feels like a correlation. But they would do this with the bobbing for apples, and this is how they would choose these things. We look at things like witches' hats and brooms, and the witches' hats and brooms were symbolic of sexual energy, that they're, how do you say this in a nice way? I don't think you really can, but that your climatic energies from orgasm were focused into psychic power through the vessels of the broomstick and the witch's hat that we tend today to put onto our children. They would do with the jack-o'-lanterns. It was a weird thing, the faces they would carve on them, because they were symbolic of tormented spirits, of tormented dead, and those who used them, or they were put there by the Druids, it expressed a sympathy for Satan, a sympathy for the enemy, a sympathy for the demonic, and therefore it drew sympathy and covenant in a sense with the spirits that didn't then come to bother them. And it's weird because as they were offered by the Druids to these houses, it almost is symbolic, sounding like the blood of Jesus or the blood of the Lamb for the Passover, that if this is here, the spirits will pass over and not bother the house. So a jack-o'-lantern, in some sense, is a replica or an imitation of the blood and the hyssop being painted over the doors in Egypt. These things they're not fun, they're not happy. We love bonfires, and what they would do with the bonfires is they would do human sacrifice. This is one of the biggest nights for human sacrifice on the entire earth. human sacrifice, animal sacrifice, and they would start these large fires. And the purpose of the fire was, since the veil was thin, it gives the demons and the spirits something to focus in on. And they would focus in on it so that they can transfer through the veil. They would throw human bodies in there, children and adults, and the bones of the animal sacrifices, so that in the morning time, there'd be nothing left but ashes and bone, hence it was known as a bonfire. We call it a bonfire today. And they would take the fire from the bonfire back to their homes to light their personal fires. It was taking this stuff home with you. And because they could not guarantee that the spirits that crossed through were good spirits at all, but they might be demonic or tormenting, this is why they wore costumes and did things like that, so that when the spirit saw them, it would think it's one of them or be scared of them and go the other way. And this is the purpose of dressing up like ghouls and goblins and witches and warlocks, etc., etc. And so none of this stuff is really in the fun realm, but we have made it fun as church people. Now, with all of that out of the way, Christian, believer, if you ain't a believer, if you ain't a Christian, I ain't talking to you. But with all of that out the way, and I'd say that's the easy part. Here's my big problem with it. Because that stuff's a problem, but that's not my big problem with it. That's the easy stuff. That's the stuff you knew before I sat down. That's the stuff you knew before you pressed play. That's the stuff you knew before anyone had to tell you. That's the stuff you've been ignoring in order to get them sugar babies, sugar daddies, Reese cups, and almond joys. But the stuff that bothers me is simple. It's loyalty. Somebody, if you're watching this, write in the comments, write in the chat, write loyalty. Because loyalty is a big thing. I look at this and I think my biggest problem is understanding the loyalty of the followers. Loyalties of the followers of the devil versus loyalty of the followers of Jesus. There's a big problem here. Because, and if you think about it, no Satanist, no atheist, no devil worshiper ever says, I think for Christmas, I want to go worship Jesus. Nobody says, I think for resurrection, I want to go worship Jesus. Nobody ever says, oh, it's the Feast of the Tents. Oh, it's Passover. Oh, it's Pentecost. I want to go worship Jesus. None of these people do. In fact, a lot of Christians don't even think that way. A lot of Christians think, oh, it's Christmas. I'm going to go spend it with my family. Oh, it's Easter. I want to stay home and do an egg hunt. Oh, it's Pentecost. That don't even exist no more. And we just start giving up, oh, Feast of Tabernacles, that's Old Testament. And we start giving up the things we believe, yet when it comes time for the devil to be celebrated, conjured, called on, begged to come, given sacrifices to, we complain about tithe and offering and they don't mind killing their own children. We complain about getting up at a certain time for Sunday morning and they don't mind killing their own children. Talk loyalty of the follower. We'll dress our kids up like them and they'll never bow down to our God. We'll take a knee to their rituals and they won't take communion, they won't be baptized, they won't tithe, they won't offer, they won't present themselves a living sacrifice to our God, they won't show up for the service. We play with them, but they're more loyal to the devil than we are to God. And this is a conflict because the way that the enemy gains loyalty is reward. It's reward. That he buys you, he buys a person. This is why they worship the way they do, is that they feel they get an immediate power, an immediate answer, an immediate response. As where we know that we endure a season, and then in harvest time, God's gonna bring to us, or even in the end, God's gonna bring to us. And so the enemy employs a tactic, instant reward for his people, and procrastination for God's people. Procrastination is a demonic tactic to have you delay committing to God because you always think, I'll just do it tomorrow. And as long as you think that you could be loyal to God tomorrow, you'll continue to be loyal to the devil today. And they employ as a weapon cancel culture. It's a tool of loyalists. The problem with cancel culture is we could cancel Halloween if we wanted to. 2 billion Christians in the earth, supposedly. We ain't canceled it yet. And I don't mean that you'd stop a devil worshiper from participating in the actual rituals, but we ain't talking about that. We're participating in the party portion. In the worship portion, while they do the rituals, Christians do the worship, door to door, do the worship, trick or treat, do the worship, offer the sacrifice, do the worship, go to the party, do the worship, conjure the dead. And we could put a cancel to all that. We can guarantee that no store would make a profit by putting that stuff up. We can guarantee that no movie theater would gain any profit by putting those movies. You know that movies dealing with the demonic make up about 30% of all revenue from movies today? No, you didn't know that, but it does. But we could put a stop to that. But Christians don't cancel anything. And the world cancels everything. So Christians won't even talk pronouns. Christians won't even talk pronouns, even though in the Bible, the place we see the pronouns is, I am legion, for we are many. Mixed up pronouns come from the same spirit that have us playing Halloween. So what happens is they'll cancel us if we don't play their game, but we won't cancel them at all. It's an amazing thing to think of that loyalty, because you know one thing that they'll do is they will curse our stuff, chant over our stuff, walk into our churches protesting abortion, taking their clothes off, screaming at the pastors. They will stand on the corners. They will cast spells as much as they can. Now they may come to nothing because the blood of Jesus is greater, but they are willing to try it. And we won't even walk through the aisles of a grocery store praying over candy that we know witches have conjured to. Loyalty to your God versus loyalty that they show to their God is a ridiculous, crazy thing when it comes down to it. And then we start thinking, well, listen, Daniel, it's just costumes. It's just costumes. I just put my kids like costumes. Well, let's talk about costumes since it's just fun. What costumes are we talking? Are we talking witches? You want to dress your child like a witch? Okay, well, that's not a fun one. What about a fairy? Because if you really study fairies, Tinkerbell ain't it. If you really study fairies, you get really deep down into the occult, the fair. So we go past that. What about vampires? Those who are of the dead, not of the living, not of the dead, but are a living dead thing that lives on drinking the blood of others. They live in the night. Okay, that's not fun. Let's talk wolves, right? Now you start dealing with transforming, human transforming to animal. So now we're dealing with shape-shifting, right? Humans shape-shifting, animals shape-shifting, bestiality. Okay, dress them up as a demon, because that's fun. Oh no, how about a ghost? Because that's fun. Or what about a devil? Because that's fun. Or maybe somebody famous. Let's deal with famous people. Careers or superheroes. I think idolatry is super duper fun. We'll dress them up like the people they idolize the most. Or, you know what? Superheroes are fun. Manny, are superheroes fun?
Superheroes are fun.
So Superman is an alien. Dress them up like an alien, right? Aliens are lies. Dress them up like an X-Men. X-Men are mutants. Mutants say that there's a mistake or evolution is real. So now you're endorsing Darwin because it's fun and it just sounds like I'm tripping a little bit, but maybe Iron Man, idolatry, Tony Stark, an Antichrist, savior of man figure, or Thor who is a Norse god of thunder, or Captain America who is nationalism, or Black Panther which is racial division. Or do I have to go on that they have made all of the breakdowns of the fall of man fun for us to raise our children up in the way they should go? No. We have to think a little bit past that. And you know what? They mask Halloween's darkness as Satan worship so that you think if you're not doing Satan worship, then you're okay to have the fun part. So there's a mask. It's either family fun or it's Satan worship. And since I'm not doing Satan worship, I'm just doing family fun. You know, that's the lie. That's the lie of good and evil, right? Of light and dark, of right and wrong, of left and right, where it's either truth in God or it falls into the knowledge of good and evil, right? And so the problem then is if they mask it in Satan worship, you think you're okay. When the reality of it is most worship of the enemy is not Satan worship. In fact, the Church of Satan will tell you they don't even worship Satan. So where does it fall then? I'll tell you where it falls. It falls in here. Gnosticism, Rosicrucianism, Theosophy, alchemy, Kabbalists, and anyone else that deals with this tree of life that they pitch at you in your great awakening or your enlightenment. it's Luciferian. So the physical side, the dark side is Satanist, but the right side, the light side, the spiritual side is Luciferian. And they all believe that Lucifer is a savior and that the light is a saving grace, and that's your way to enlightenment. And so when they talk awakening and enlightenment and eye-opening, don't forget that when they ate the fruit, their eyes were open. It's Luciferian. He is a light bearer, and they offer you a tree of life. That tree of life is what they call the astral plane. Oh, why don't you make your kids an astronaut? That's cute. No, none of it's cute. None of it's fun. And they hide the holiday in masks. And if you ever study mask making, then what they believe about masks, and this is the root of all masks, this is why we don't wear masks, not for anything that they tell us we have to protect this or protect that, because it's all rooted in the same place. The mask maker prays a spirit or has a spirit intention in mind when they develop the mask. And the one who wears the mask takes on the spirit of the maker of the mask, or the intention of the maker of the mask, which is why when people wear masks, they behave different. Your kid don't jump down a flight of steps until you tie a cape around his neck. Your kid don't feel like he's invincible until you put that mask on him. Then he thinks he can come and arrest you. Give him that fake badge, that cowboy hat, and that gun, and he thinks he's taking you to jail. Because when people put on masks, they become the spirit of the mask that was put on them. And when they take that mask off, they no longer operate under that spirit. That's why someone shy will get very bold, take off the mask, they go back to shy. And so when you start dealing with mask making, what you're dealing with is a persona. Persona meaning a false face, or wood or clay, which God is not made of wood or clay. False face, persona, English word person. Do you have any weapons on your person? Is that your wife or your person? Is your pronoun he, she, or person? See, this whole person idea, we have been trained into wearing masks with our whole life so that we can offer up a false identity and have no problem falling into the ways of this world that we are not supposed to be conformed to. I'm telling you this year, October, don't get into the ritual, get into what is written and be transformed through the truth. Renew your mind about what God says we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to be, and how we're supposed to be ambassadors for his kingdom. Don't let Halloween trick you. Don't let the costumes trick you. Don't let your kids trick you. Take some authority this year. Close the door on the devil. And I bet your life be a little bit sweeter than that Reese's. Be blessed. But I still make it the best you ever had.
You had them all afternoon.
Yeah.
Uncle and cousins in the corner. Why you let your grandson steal? Stop.
I didn't catch you first.